Neka, a poor widow on the outskirts of Amun village, huddled in the corner of her dimly lit hut and wrapped a threadbare cloth tightly around her trembling shoulders. The night air was thick and still, unusually cool for the season, and it carried a heaviness of dread. Beyond her mud walls, an old iroko tree's stump stood freshly cut, its absence an open wound in the darkness. Neka's mind churned with the old folk tales her mother used to whisper, stories of restless spirits roaming at night, spirits of those who died unjustly and wander without heads. She squeezed her eyes shut and silently prayed. Chineke, help me, she begged in her heart, as a distant owl hooted an omen into the gloom. Earlier that day, the men of Amun did the unthinkable. They felled the ancient iroko tree that had stood at the village's edge for generations. The loggers scoffed at the elders' warnings of spirits and taboo. Neka watched from afar as the mighty tree crashed down with a thunderous groan, the ground shuddering beneath her feet. A flock of birds burst from the forest canopy, then an eerie hush fell over the bush. No crickets chirped, no leaves rustled. One old villager spat and muttered, "Tufiakwa," God forbid, before turning away. In Neka's gut, a cold dread coiled. She was certain something ancient and sacred had been disturbed. Now, in the dead of night, that dread grew with the eerie silence around her hut. The usual chorus of crickets was gone, replaced only by a low wind whispering through the banana leaves. Neka clutched her wooden rosary tight. A sudden noise made her flinch. A dry scraping like a calabash dragged across dirt. It came from the direction of the felled iroko's stump. Her blood ran cold. Could it be something evil? She thought. Heart-pounding, Neka inched toward her small window and peered out into the moonlit darkness. At first, she saw nothing beyond the glow of her dying cooking fire. Then, at the edge of her compound where the shadows were deepest, something moved. A shape drifted between the plantain trees, vaguely human, but wrong. It was tall and ash-grey under the moon, and where its head should have been there was only empty space above broad shoulders. Neka's breath caught in her chest. A headless one? She stifled a cry with trembling hands. The figure glided forward noiselessly, barely touching the ground. As it passed through a shaft of moonlight, she saw it clearly, a decapitated body draped in tattered cloth, with blackened stains around its severed neck. Neka staggered back from the window, heart hammering against her ribs. She had heard elders whisper of vengeful spirits appearing without heads, but seeing one herself was almost too much to bear. Tears pricked her eyes as a wet, gurgling moan rose from outside, lifting every hair on her skin. Pressing her back to the mud wall, she wondered if the spirit could sense her fear. "Biko, please," she begged in a barely audible breath, unsure if she pleaded for mercy or to be made invisible. A sudden shriek tore through the night. It was a man's voice, cracking with terror. Neka recognized it at once. It was Namdi, her neighbor's son, screaming for help. Swallowing her fear, she snatched up her lantern and dashed outside toward the road. In the eerie wash of moonlight, she spotted Namdi not far from the felled tree's stump, sprawled in the dirt and frantically crawling away from two looming figures. Neka's blood ran cold at the sight. Both apparitions were headless. One wore the tattered remnant of a blouse and clutched a broken palm frond like a whip. The other was broader, with a frayed noose dangling from its neck stump. They moved in jerky, unnatural motions, closing in on Namdi as he wailed in terror, his discarded bicycle lying useless at his side. Summoning every ounce of courage, Nineka rushed forward and placed herself between Namdi and the apparitions. In a clear, trembling voice, she recited an old incantation her grandmother had taught her. Udodirigi muonile. Peace be unto you, all spirits. The headless ghosts halted, turning their faceless necks toward her. Neka raised the lantern high, its dim glow quivering. An icy cold wafted from the spirits, carrying the stench of grave earth and old blood. Her legs nearly gave way, but she steadied herself with a hand on the small of charm hanging at her neck, the sacred emblem of her ancestors. Just when it seemed her strength would fail, a cock crowed in the distance, the first hint of dawn. The headless spirits twisted toward the east, as if startled by the coming light. In that blink of an eye, Namdi lunged forward and grabbed Neka's arm. "Run!" he rasped. He half-dragged her as they fled back toward the village. The lantern bobbed wildly in her hand as they sprinted past the crossroads. Neka nearly stumbled, but Namdi kept her upright until they reached the first huts, at the village edge, where the grey light of dawn was creeping in. They finally stopped and dared to look back. The headless spirits had vanished into the lingering night mist. By dawn, the entire village had gathered in awe and terror around the phantom iroko. Trembling, Neka and Namdi recounted the night's horrors. Gasps and cries of "Chineke" rose as they spoke of the headless apparitions. The men who felled the tree hung back with ashen faces, knowing their folly had unleashed this curse. The village elders convened on the spot. The old Dibia, priest, confirmed what all feared. The spirits of those unjustly killed were angry that their sacred iroko had been cut down. Until a spiritual debt was paid, the headless ghosts would not rest, and the massive tree blocking the road would remain. Without delay, preparations for appeasement began. A white ram, symbol of sacrifice, was tethered at the base of the towering tree. Calabashes of palm wine and cola nuts were gathered as offerings, and sacred chalk marks were drawn on the earth. Though still shaken, Neka joined the elders in the ritual, determined to see the nightmare ended. As the sun's first rays crept over the horizon, the Dibia led prayers and chants, beseeching the restless spirits to accept their sacrifice and be at peace. Finally, the ram's throat was cut, its blood offered to the earth. For a heartbeat, all was still. Then a sudden wind rose, howling through the village. The huge iroko's branches rattled and the ground quaked. Villagers staggered back in alarm. Just as abruptly, the wind died away. "It is done," the priest declared solemnly. When the dust settled, the colossal iroko had vanished as mysteriously as it appeared. In the road remained only the old stump of the felled tree. Sunlight broke through the dispersing clouds, and a chorus of birds tentatively resumed their songs. The villagers let out a collective sigh of relief and offered prayers of thanks to God and the ancestors. Neka finally sank to her knees, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. By that evening, life in Immune began to mend. Chukwudi and his men publicly apologized and vowed to atone by planting new trees and honoring the old ways. The villagers hailed Neka as a quiet hero. They brought her food and helped patch her roof in thanks for her bravery. Namdi, forever grateful, came by daily to assist her, treating her as he would his own mother. Sometimes late at night, Neka still thought she heard faint rustling near the fresh sapling that now grew where the ancient iroko once stood. Whenever the memories of that horror stirred, she would whisper a prayer for the restless dead. Without fail, a gentle breeze would rustle the eaves of her hut, soft as a sigh. In her heart, she believed it was the spirits whispering Dalu, thank you, before finally fading into the night. Comforted, Neka would draw her wrapper close and drift into a peaceful sleep, knowing the village was safe again. Thanks for watching Royal Beat Tales. Please subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.